powerful Hurricane Maria slams into Puerto Rico. Almost 2 weeks after being spared the full force of Hurricane Irma, Puerto Rico was bracing itself as Hurricane Maria made landfall Wednesday morning, bringing sustained winds of 155 miles per hour, just below the threshold for a Category 5 storm. While thousands of residents have followed Governor Ricardo Rosselló's instructions to seek shelter, the U.S. territory remains ill-prepared for the assault. As the New York Times reports, Puerto Rico's population of 3.5 million has swelled over the last weeks, with people fleeing neighboring storm-ravaged islands. Meanwhile, about 500 schools and other buildings have been set up as shelters, with the capacity for accommodating just 133,352 people in the case of an emergency. The forecast is potentially catastrophic. Officials fear that debris scattered by Irma earlier this month will be scooped up and thrashed around by Maria. There are concerns that a predicted storm surge of up to 9 feet, plus an additional 12 inches of rainfall, could swamp low-lying areas and cause life-threatening flash floods and mudslides, according to the National Hurricane Center. Although Puerto Rico escaped Irma comparatively unscathed, 3 people died in the storm, which battered its beleaguered electric grid, known as PREPA, leaving 70% of households without electricity and 30% without water, according to the Times. Squeezed by the island's debt crisis, the utility effectively declared bankruptcy in July and has been unable to make necessary improvements for years, burning imported oil to produce electricity and failing to carry out routine maintenance checks, such as trimming trees near power lines. With Maria expected to down the fragile system yet again, on Tuesday residents scrambled to buy generators and stock up on gas, while supermarkets were overloaded with customers, causing hours-long lines. Experts warn Maria could be record-breaking. This could potentially be the strongest hurricane to ever reach the shores of Puerto Rico, said CNN meteorologist Derek Van Dam. A lot of people remember or have heard of the storms that hit in 1928 and 1930. This could pale to those in comparison. The central pressure of this storm is at 908 millibars, that is the 10th lowest pressure recorded in Atlantic Basin hurricanes. Maria, which has generally charted the same destructive path taken by Irma, has already wreaked havoc across the wind-whipped region. There have been reports of flooding, mudslides and power outages in St. Lucia, and the situation is particularly dire in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Monday, Dominica suffered significant impairment. Official telecommunications to the island have been severed, but amateur radio operators say that 90% of the buildings have been damaged, with their claims being supplemented by a raft of emerging aerial pictures showing flattened buildings, burst riverbanks, and a flooded runway. The last communication from the island was from Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett, who, testifying to the force of the storm, wrote in a Facebook post that winds had swept away the roofs of almost every person I have spoken to or otherwise made contact with.